Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about what a Democratic tsunami looks like on the national level as we go into the 2026 midterms with a brand new poll from Marist University saying that the Democrats have a lead above the Republicans by a whopping 14 percentage points nationwide. A completely unheard of margin, something we haven't seen in electoral politics since 1974. That was the last time Democrats had an opportunity where they actually had such a substantial advantage nationwide. That was a 16-point margin at the day and age right after Richard Nixon's resignation and all of this conversation that surrounded it, and a really damning period for Republicans on the national level. And it was only then the Democrats had a lead that seems to be similar to that of the Marist University poll that was released this morning. Now, I'm not here to say that I expect this poll to be accurate to the degree that Democrats are winning nationally by 14 points. But till today, we have not yet explored the opportunity of what a Democratic tsunami looks like in a blue wave year of 2026. And that's because we talked about a blue wave visualized. We talk about the upper bounds of Democrats winning by 8 or 9 points on the national level, just as they did in 2018. But something that felt so incomprehensible, at least to some degree, was this possibility that Democrats would maybe win, but not by a substantial enough amount that would make a massive difference on the side of the U.S. Senate, the gubernatorial elections, and of course the House races, like this poll would declare. And so on your screen right now, we're going to take a look at a map here of the 2024 House elections, understanding what those races looked like and what a 14-point national swing or 14-point national victory for Democrats and a 17-point swing would actually look like on the congressional level, helping us understand, visually speaking, what that Democratic tsunami actually looks like. Again, barring all other signs that poll in and of itself is 100% correct. Then we will move to the U.S. Senate and take a look at what the races would look like there. We have a completely blank Senate map that we'll be working with. We'll fill it out as we go along, but pretty much this is going to be not a prediction, but simply an understanding point of where we are. And so before we actually get straight into that 17-point shift, I want us to actually take it step by step and really understand just how incomprehensible this 14-point victory would be, not just on the national stage of Democrats being up 55-41, but also, too, on the congressional level, how many seats, sheer amount of seats, we would be seeing gained in favor of the Democratic Party every single step of the way. And so the first thing here is, taking a look on the Democratic side, which is that right now they have 215 seats. Republicans have 220. It's a 5-seat advantage for the GOP. Democrats only need 3 seats from the Republicans in order to win the majority in 2026. But we know that's certainly going to come. Democrats are near guaranteed control of the U.S. House, barring an interference from the Supreme Court surrounding the Voting Rights Act. And even then, I'm not thoroughly convinced that will be enough to save them. But the Democrats need just 3 seats. They will certainly get that. And so to begin, we'll just go ahead and shift the national stage by just 5 points to the left. Democrats would be ushered in to 230 seats, but Democrats would only be winning the national popular vote roughly by about 2 points. In the last election, Republicans won by 2.7. This would be about a 2.3% margin on the national stage. That brings Democrats an additional 15 seats nationally. I mean, a really substantial enough margin that we can make that clear determination that, this is so significant for Democrats that it really goes to show that just on the margins, the map and the math is quite conducive to Democrats winning back the House majority. But then adding an additional 5 seats or 5 percentage points to the Democrats, that would bring them from being up by 2.3 rather to being up by 7.3 nationally. That would be roughly in line with what we saw in 2018. Democrats would be up 7.3%. They would get 238 seats, which is actually 3 seats more than what the Democrats had in 2018. Now, remember, that shift on the national level is just 17 percentage points. We've only seen about a 10-point shift right now. And so the question will remain, with this remaining 7%, what exactly do we see? Well, let's shift by 5 more points to the left. Then Democrats get to 257 seats. Now, this is a 15-point shift relative to the last election. You are roughly even odds with where Democrats are in this Marist University poll. It does get slightly better, but the point is that Democrats would be at 257, which, believe it or not, is the exact number the Democrats were at in 2008 when they won nationally by roughly 11 points. If you're looking at it this way, Democrats would be up by roughly 12. In 2008, they were up by 11. The numbers were nearly identical. But shifting it over by that one more point and then one more, making it the official 17-point shift, would give Democrats, in theory, 263 seats in the House of Representatives. Republicans would be at just 172. Nearly 100 seats more for the Democrats over the Republicans. And that's really what this tsunami would look like, what it would look like if you get to an incomprehensible margin that seems to be explained by some of the nation's top pollsters. Marist University was spot on in 2022, off by nothing in that last midterm cycle. And if they are saying that this is where the race stands today, I'm not saying I 100% believe them. But there must be a lick of truth when it comes down to the Democratic advantage, and one that will certainly usher in Democratic leadership in the House of Representatives. The only real question is, to what degree? And clearly, if their poll is right, by a lot nationwide. But moving over to the House, the Senate rather, we'll come back to the House in a moment and talk about them in tandem, because we'll do that as the final reflection here. 35 seats are up in 2026 on the Senate level, equally as important, if not more important, for the longevity of our nation and a lot of things that we're seeing in Washington, D.C., but Democrats don't start out as the favorites, right? When you take a look at all of the states that they currently hold, Democrats max out. They max out at roughly 47 seats nationwide. You're going to find it as I fill out this map here. Democrats are at 47. Republicans, I must have said 45, but I meant to say 47. Democrats are at 47. Republicans, let's go ahead and flip these back because that doesn't look right. Republicans are at 53. Democrats have been heavily targeting North Carolina and Maine as prime opportunities in 2026, knowing the dynamics of the state, knowing, that North Carolina was only won by Trump by 3 points in the last election. Maine was won by Kamala Harris by 4 points in the last election. Democrats know they need to target those states. Of course, they have toss-ups in Georgia and Michigan that they'll have to focus on, but Democrats are looking that, again, under this more expansive and robust circumstance for the Democratic Party, you could then see the expansion of seats that they would contest in to be in states like Ohio and Iowa and Texas and Alaska, and yes, even Nebraska, but that's really with an independent Dan Osborne in that race. But the point is that the Republican Party's advantage would dwindle down from what is currently 53 down to 46 as it stands right now. Now, in terms of overall margin, of course, you would see some shifts towards the left. Florida would be closer, Mississippi would be closer, South Carolina would be closer, Kansas would be closer, Montana would be closer, but in real effect, there would be no difference. Democrats would still lose these races, and even under this, Democratic tsunami, the rest of these races are certainly not going to the Democratic Party, even under those circumstances, because of the fact that these states are so lopsided in favor of the GOP. But the 9 remaining races are a bit more tricky. North Carolina would easily come across as a likely blue state, Georgia as well, Michigan as well. Maine would even find itself voting against Susan Collins by such a significant amount. I mean, you are talking that at baseline, Democrats are picking up 2 seats, and with the right candidates in these races, could find themselves doing tremendously well. For instance, in a state like Ohio, Sherrod Brown could win that race under a D+14 national environment by about 4 to 5 points. In Alaska, Mary Peltola could win that race against Dan Sullivan under a national environment such as this, right? Josh Turek could defeat Ashley Hinson under a national environment like this. In Texas, you could see it. And again, that's why this becomes with James Tallarico against Ken Paxton. But the reason why I point this out isn't to say that, Democrats are suddenly on track for something like this. Not at all. I do think, though, that the data suggests the Democrats do have an upper limit, and we have not seen it yet. And while this might not be our reality, in exploring that possibility the Democrats do win nationally by 14 points, the data doesn't really lie with this. It is really, really hard to find that Democrats would be losing a lot of these races that right now, as the national environment stands, D+5, Democrats are in competitive range with Mary Peltola and with James Tallarico against Ken Paxton in Alaska and Texas. They're already in competitive territory in Ohio. They're the favorites. In Michigan, North Carolina, and Georgia, and Maine is the real toss-up. As much as these races, again, feel so insane to even be on this end of being more in favor of the Democratic Party than in years past. Keep in mind, this would be a 17-point more Democratic electorate than the 2024 race. And so, yes, it is unrealistic. And yes, it is not something that I expect to happen. But as it stands right now, it is a data point from a pollster that in the last midterm was 100% accurate. And I think that matters a lot for the Democratic Party, in that I do think it reveals something about where our nation stands. It's not a landslide for Democrats. It's certainly not going to be 14 points. But it could be higher than we expect, just as 2025 in Virginia and New Jersey and Georgia and Pennsylvania and all of the states that held elections, California, even in major cities like New York. Democrats were able to either match expectations that were already set very high or exceed them miles ahead. And I think that is going to be the story of the 26 midterms. Maybe not to a point where you're winning nationally by 14 points, but that's what it would look like visually. Democrats would win the House, Democrats would win the Senate, and this time by overwhelming amounts, the likes of which Democrats have not seen in decades, seriously, maybe half a century. And that is the lesson. That is something that you should keep in mind, because it isn't going to be easy. And Democrats are certainly, and again, not the ones who are counting on this to happen. But it's not impossible. And the fact that it is even the case where we are right now, I think Democrats at least win the national popular vote by 4 and an upper limit of 11 or 12 points. And that's something that I think that should terrify the Republican Party, especially as they continue to lose the battles on redistricting nationwide, as they continue to lose the battles in statewide elections, as they continue to lose because Donald Trump is unpopular and voters are abandoning their party in record ways. And that is what this data captures in. That is the sentiment it is able to show us, and something that, while it may not be the likeliest outcome, and certainly an unlikely one at that, explores us in a reality that still has a non-zero chance of happening, which matters a lot to the Democratic Party, matters a lot to Americans across this country. This 14-point lead, while something we should not take to core and to heart, is something Republicans simply cannot afford to overlook, given their track record of losing over the past year, and potentially a very long pathway into even more loss in 2026 and potentially beyond. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2026 House election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.